Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Debra Cohen. She is a DIY indie artist, author, a cantorial soloist, yoga teacher, and so much more. Welcome to the show, Debra.
Thank you, AJ. It's great to be here with you.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Deborah. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about music, we'll talk about healing, we'll talk about life invention. Before we come to this part, let's understand all this from your journey, your background, so that, people can understand who they are listening to. So let's listen from you.
Well, thank you for having me here, AJ. And I hope that I can speak something of value to your listeners. I have some wisdom from life to share on my personal journey. I am actually right now, just to put a little plug in for me, saying I am competing in my first beauty contest at the age of 70, 70. So I did it just to make aging a little bit more exciting. And not only that, but of course, as an artist, an indie artist, it will give me notoriety. More people will find about me and my music this way. But most of all, it's to help the National Breast Cancer Foundation. I am here in Florida, so national meaning the United States. There's also other organizations that are celebrating Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so I just wanted to put that out there. The contestants for this competition are in the finalist stage. I actually won the semifinalists. I'm one of the semifinalists. And this is a competition for women over 40. So I qualify as a sage in my 70s. The finalists will be announced actually tonight at the time this broadcast is recording at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you could vote for me, it's free. And I'm going to put the vote link in the chat, unless AJ, you're quicker than me.
Yes, please.
Okay. Vote fab40.com/Debra/Cohen-2. That'll take you to the competition, and you can vote every 24 hours with a free vote. If you'd like to donate to the National Breast Cancer Foundation, you can pay $1 for each additional vote. So there you have it. So I started at the present tense instead of the past. Usually I talk about my past, but I wanted to put that in there because of the deadline issue. Well,
Right.
I was in the 80s in a new wave rock band in Boston. And the highlight of that particular dispensation or journey was opening up for Joan Jett. If some of you are into Joan Jett, you would know she's still going, but I took a detour because I was partying too much as a rock star and only managed to tour around New England, and I got into the drug addiction because there was a lot of free cocaine and Dom Perignon and party, party, party is, the Cyndi Lauper song, girls just want to have fun. Anyway, so, but instead of dying from an overdose, I started praying. And of course, we all have our belief systems, and the God that I was aware of somewhere in the universe, I asked him if he would let me live and I would serve him. So I lived and changed my ways, had to go through a lot of counseling because I was also suffering usually people that take drugs are dealing with a trauma. And for me, it was childhood trauma, sexual abuse from my stepfather. So I had that stuffed inside of me and had forgotten it so well at 13 years old that I didn't even remember it happened until I got into a car accident, like years later in my 30s. And I suffered whiplash, and all of a sudden had this memory, a flood of memories. So the body is very intelligent in storing negative emotions or trauma that we don't want to deal with. And some of you may know the term PTSD. So actually, that was what I was diagnosed with. And, somebody that has PTSD will be very jumpy. If you try to do fun things like come up behind somebody and, boo, scare them, and they say, I would cry. I didn't know why before this discovery, but they're very nervous. Post-traumatic stress disorder. They're a basket case inside. So they try to put on a good appearance, but inside they're not very well at all, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and it affects you physically. So I had to go to counseling, which means you have to go to somebody that is qualified. You don't want to talk to all of your friends and unload on all of the negative things about life, because we are all aware, if you watch the media, what negative things are. We need to feed ourselves with positive thoughts. And scientifically, we know that for every negative thought that we entertain in our minds, it takes 10 positive thoughts to erase the negative thought. So I don't know how much you want me to go into this, AJ, but it's good to get help. Never keep it to yourself in shame, but please be sure you go to a qualified person. Like my therapist said when I was in counseling, that I would need to have a family intervention, which means you get to a place in your journey of healing where you have to tell the person, the family involved in the person, the molester. Okay. In this case, my stepfather. I didn't want to do it because I did not want to hurt my mother. I knew my mother was having heart issues, and I thought telling her that would kill her. But my therapist encouraged me to tell the family, because that's the only way I would regain my own sense of self-worth and get over self-loathing. So I did the intervention, planned it, and told them what happened. And my mother didn't believe me. She thought I was making up a story. And this happens a lot, so you got to really decide for yourself what you need to do. It's not a pattern of A, B, C. This is what you have to do. It's an individual healing journey. And there is healing. So if you're suffering emotionally, physically, mentally, there are places. Just, I don't know in India where they are, but surely there must be a helpline for women in need. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, my mother didn't believe me. She thought I was making up the story to hurt her, and I was thrown out of the family. So that was not what I planned on happening. I was hoping for healing. I was hoping that I would be embraced and loved in the right way, but it for me didn't happen. So I've been a loner for a lot of my life, and that's okay. You can be a loner and not be lonely, but we're not meant to be alone, So I decided to study the Bible, and without getting religious, I'll just say that I discovered a lot of interesting things in the Hebrew language. And a lot of the translations of the original Bible in Hebrew have been distorted because, if you're trying to understand the Bible in English, a lot of times it's not accurate. And this is how we get into denominations and different religions, from the Bible. So, anyway, I started writing music after that healing episode in Nashville in the 90s and tried to join a convent. But I asked the wrong questions of the priest, the Catholic priest. I asked him why they don't allow female priests, and he asked me to leave. He said, "You don't know enough about the Bible to even be in a convent nun. You need to go home and read your Bible." So I get mad at God. A lot of Catholics, they think priests are like the Pope is some special creature. No, we're all equal. Sorry. We all have different roles in this life, but nobody is worth more than somebody else. And if you send somebody away when they're ignorant, meaning they just don't know, they've not been taught, that's a little bit too pompous and self-righteous for me. So I decided to form a blues band in Nashville and had some success there, but it still wasn't where I needed to be. Everybody needs to know their place in this world. Everybody has a place, and you have to find what your purpose is for being here. And if you're not content, and of course, there was a time when I went through jobs that I was not content with. I had a job as a public school teacher. What is that noise?
Okay, that today is Diwali, the festival of light. So we are all firecrackers up in the sky in New Delhi.
Oh,
So you will get. I thought you will not because of this mic and all, but it has reached you.
oh, okay. I thought it sounded like somebody was slapping a book on the,
No, those are firecrackers. A lot of firecrackers tonight.
Okay, firecrackers. Okay. So anyway, I'll try to keep it exciting. I don't know. Anyway, so in a nutshell, you need to find out what your role is in life. And the beauty of living is that it's never too late to start over again. I follow Judaism, so every year is a new beginning. We just had our high holy days for Rosh Hashanah, and I decided a few years ago, I decided that I was going to follow after the biblical character Sarah, Abraham and Sarah. Well, in the story, Sarah was very old, older than me, and she was still beautiful. She was still beautiful. And so beautiful that Abraham, at any time somebody would meet Sarah, Abraham said to his wife, Sarah, "Now don't tell them you're my wife because then they'll kill me so they can have you. Tell them you're my sister." And he did that a couple times. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to have that mindset of beauty. And so getting back to the beauty contest, I, believe that it's not just genetic. It's how you take care of your body. I think I look younger and happier now than I ever did when I was younger. And a lot of things, at least in this country, change when you get older. You don't have to worry so much about pleasing people and worrying about what the other people say. You find the reason for living, and then you get to a point in your life where we never truly arrive at perfection. Nobody's perfect. So we always have something to strive for. But when we learn things, which is why I'm on this podcast, you share them with other people to encourage other people. So when you get to a place of wholeness and you start becoming aware of how you can help other people, then you've achieved a point of wisdom in your own life, which is a very good thing. And so that's another reason I entered this beauty contest, so I can help people to know beauty secrets.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Debra. So much to learn from you. So, no slowing down for you. Yoga, beauty contest, podcast, book. and so many things that you are doing and have been doing since so much of time. So I want to understand then, uh, looking at the past, the trauma, PTSD, dealing with this, even uh, uh, drug abuse and all those things, and you cope with all drug overdose, all those things you came out. How do you uh, how did you manage to put those things away and rebuild things for yourself? And if I say you are actually enjoying a very good part of your life at this by doing so many things at the same time, what would you give this credit for?
Ah, well, I would give the credit first to God as I know him, and believing in a higher power, whatever you want to call to God as you know him. I mean, unless you've met God face to face, nobody can really claim who God is. So you have to develop a relationship with God, and it's possible, at least in Judaism. Not all people believe in being a spiritual being, and I had no idea when I was suffering taking drugs. I had no idea that there is a soul that is given to every human being at birth. And we know because we're breathing air, the breath of life is comes from God. So when you develop an awareness that you're more than just a physical person, I call this the earth suit, because when we die, the the physical body goes back to the ground, but something inside of us is the real who we are, the real person. If you look at someone's eyes, those are the window of the soul, the windows of the soul. And you have to get to a place where you look at a mirror and you look at yourself in the eyes and you want to see the beauty inside of you. And I could not do that when I was taking drugs. I always looked in the mirror in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s and found something flawed. I didn't actually realize until I went to counseling that I actually hated myself. And a lot of children will do that if they've been abused, because psychologically, no child wants to end up in a foster home or on the streets. So even though their parents lied to them as a child, abused them, the child will always blame it on themselves. So I did not know that I took that blame with me into adulthood and hated myself. And through counseling and I don't know if you're familiar with Whitney Houston. She was a wonderful singer, but one of her songs says the greatest love of all is to love yourself. And it's not in a conceited way. There's a fine line between that, but you need to be able to look in the mirror and love the person within. You have to love yourself before you can love anyone else. If you don't have love to give, you need to do more work on yourself. And if we all could understand that, the world would be such a better place, but it needs to be taught. I did not know that. It was through my suffering that I found this truth. I found it by reading. I found it by praying. I found it by singing. Singing to God is a powerful thing for me, and it can be for everybody. You awaken the dead parts inside of yourself and become fuller with life, fuller, and you become luminous. Like there's a story, if you believe in the story of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, when he came down from Mount Sinai, his face was brilliant after being with God for 40 days. They had to put something over his face because he was luminous. He was so bright in his face, his countenance. So I believe that if you spend enough time with God, in his goodness, you will see it in my face. You will see it in anyone's face. And I know this is also true for the people who practice darkness and evil. I remember one time going to a convention for essential oils, and it was a very big convention for essential oils. I like to use them. And this girl that was wearing all black, like a dark soul. I got into the elevator after her and she looked at me. I didn't know her. She said, "Ah, I know you're a child of light." And she said it like condemning. "You're a child of light." And I'm thinking, ooh, creepy, you know. So I'm like, obviously you can see something on my face. It's the light of life, and it's available for all of us if we just seek. That's what God says. If you seek me with all of your heart, mind, soul, spirit, and strength, you will find me. Okay, God, it's not easy. It's taken decades, but I feel comfortable enough in my 6th decade. I'll be 70 November 30th, and I'm very happy to share what I've learned in life so far, and I'm still learning.
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of people need you. A lot of older adults who will need you as their yoga instructor. A lot of people would need your wisdom as they. So it's not just a few days to go for November 30th, but then there will be many more Novembers in your life. I can see that, Deborah. So that is, I think, is for a given. That is for sure. So I want to understand all this love for God that culminated in a book, Jewish Palestine, Arab Palestine. Why you could have talked more about spirituality? How come a topic like this, or is it that it is only the topic and there is much more deeper meaning behind in the book?
Good question, AJ. Thank you for asking. Yes, I did not plan on being an author because I'm primarily an indie artist, meaning you can find my music online just by searching DebraCohenMusic.com, or just Google search for Debra Cohen Music. So, but after we're talking about Israel now, after the October 7th, 2023 massacre of the terrorists, Hamas and Hezbollah, but the October 70th massacre at the music festival in the Negev desert in Israel was planned and done by Hamas. And as a side note, if you do know the Bible in Hebrew, there is that word in the Bible that warns about Hamas, which is amazing. And in English, it means violence. So I had, because of my closeness with the Spirit of God, I feel things in a deeper way. And I was really grieved in my spirit to hear about this trauma and the violence, this massacre. Too supernatural. Like there are spiritual senses that are different from your physical senses, and I could feel such a weight, a burden to do something about this, because Israel has been suffering for years with neighbors shooting rockets at them every day, stabbing, blowing up places. Nobody would want to have neighbors like that. But for some reason, our president in the United States is thinking that there is a two-state solution. Well, there is not a two-state solution. And I realized when the college students in this country started marching and demonstrating for pro-Hamas with their flags, I thought, what are these people learning in college? They don't know the truth about Palestine. So I started to research the subject and discovered that there were historic documents that were hidden in the United Kingdom archives from the time of the 20th century British mandates, which tell what happened about Palestine when Britain left that land and turned it over. Both the Jews, who were also called Palestinians, Jewish Palestinians, and the Arab Palestinians were both offered land. And Israel was, they became Israel. The Jewish Palestinians became Israel. And the Arab Palestinians were offered Transjordan, which is now Jordan. Well, the leaders of the Arab Palestinians did not want that land. They wanted the land that was given to the Jews. And if you dig even further, it's because these particular Arab Palestinians believe that the Jews need to be exterminated. It's just another Hitler leader. As a matter of fact, the leader of the Arab Palestinians who decided to do this, al Husseini, was a good friend of Hitler's. And so the plan was, with these two leaders, to exterminate the Jews and other people, which are named in my book. So my book is nonfiction, easy to read. It's an outline. It's not complicated. I just give you the facts, and you can decide for yourself what the solution is. But I highly recommend that you get it if you're still wondering what in the world's going on with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The book is called Jewish Palestine, Arab Palestine, A History of Conflict.
Right, right. There is much to learn about so many issues in this world, and especially this ongoing issue. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to, find it out for themselves. Everyone has their own version of every story,
Of course,
and everybody should get themselves educated, understand not only their own point of view, but others' point of view. And this is where you also get to understand, how much is fact, how much is fiction, how much they want to learn about things, and how much truly they will want to walk the right path. And be that as it may, you are doing a lot of work, not only in terms of being a yoga instructor, but also in terms of teaching through your podcast, A Story and a Song, and where you teach about the health benefits of singing. Tell us a bit about your podcast, Debra.
Thank you again, AJ, for asking. A Story and a Song started out just for me as a musician, sharing what was happening in my life at the time I wrote each song. And it's a discography, and it's also could be a legacy that I leave behind, because I write songs chronologically according to what's happening in the world and what's happening in my life. So it's like a memoir, but an audio memoir. And so I have the CDs, as I mentioned. It's entitled 80s, which talks about my life in Boston in the 80s when I first got into music at the age of 22. And but then I decided with this podcast to make it more applicable to listeners, because, not everybody knows who I am as an indie artist. And I needed to make it more about health, or include health in it, because a lot of people are struggling with diseases. And so, like, for example, in last week's episode, I talk about why singing helps lung health and why it's important for all of us to sing. It seems like a lot of people, at least in the United States, when I invite them to my local singing circle, it's called Soul Sing. That's where people come together in a group, and we meet once a month, and we try to find our inner voice. It's not about talent. It's not about if you can read music. It's about coming together, and I facilitate this group with simple songs that we sing. If people aren't ready to sing, they can hum or just sit there and listen. If they want to challenge their bravery, they can take a solo and sing by themselves while we listen. And these are all things that I've had to go through myself, because, again, my mother, when I was a teenager, I used to sing to the Beatles music and Olivia Newton-John, and she used to tell me that I sounded horrible. So for a while, I stopped singing because I didn't want to be criticized by my mother like that. But the desire never left me. So you were asking me, how do you pursue your health and healing from drug issues and bad things that have happened to you? You have to have a desire to live, and you've got to find a way to overcome the tragedy first by looking at the thoughts inside of your head. Who is speaking in your head? There are many voices in our minds, and we have to decide in the process of healing where each thought is coming from. Not all of the thoughts are from you as a person. Somebody told me I couldn't sing. It wasn't me that decided that, but I believed it because it was my mother that told me. Somebody tells you you're not good enough. That came from somebody. You're not born with those thoughts. Somebody put those in your head. So when you finally realize that, wait a minute, I am a worthy person. I am a living soul. I am a child of God. I am beautiful, no matter what they say. People are so cruel. I don't know if they're like that in India, but, sarcasm and making fun of people in the presidential election, how we just spend way too much time talking about negative things. So the podcast is to bring life to listeners. And unfortunately, a lot of people would rather listen to propaganda than truth. It's really sad, you know? So I find that after I went through counseling, because I had a fear of singing, I found somebody who could help me with that. And little baby steps at a time, got my courage back to sing and eventually was able to sing in public. And now look at me. I'm leading this singing circle to help other people to learn how to sing, not as a talent, but to find that special voice that only you individually have, and to be able to express it comfortably in a group. It has many benefits. Shall I name what they are?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, let me put my glasses on because it's a list and I want to make sure I don't miss any. Okay, singing makes you feel better. Yes, that's true. Singing enhances lung function. And I mentioned that I talk about it in detail on my podcast. So if you want to have more information about that, just find my podcast, A Story and a Song. The archives are on YouTube. Okay, singing helps you beat stress and relax. We know that it's so important to manage stress. As a matter of fact, 80% of most major illnesses are due to unmanaged stress. So we've got to manage our stress. Singing helps improve memory. Whoa, can you believe that? Singing builds a sense of community, which is a good thing, right? Singing lets you express yourself in a good way. Singing can help with pain relief because you become more focused on the music than on your aches and pains. Singing boosts your confidence, and I can vouch for that. I have much more confidence when I sing than when I try to talk to people in a community circle. Singing features in well-being studies. And finally, singing is for everyone. So if there's any of you that are thinking, I can't sing, well, you know what? Yes, you can. We're not talking about beauty star search talent. We're talking about finding the sounds within you, special sounds that only you have to give to the world. So that's what the podcast is about, to help more and more people find out about it. Yes.
Absolutely. There is so much to learn about life, about music, about understanding ourselves, about stories, about, so many things, about God.
Yes.
So a lot of people who would want to know more about you, from you, uh, what's the best way for them to connect with you, Deborah?
Thank you. Yes, my website, which is Debra, Debra, Cohen, Cohen, music.com.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, AJ.